on the air.
Be careful with what you say, you know?
Well, these tapes won't be used against you as they were against Nixon. This is strictly a private matter. You can even swear, and it won't go down the pages of history.
Well, I don't think I feel like swearing this one.
You wouldn't?
No, I don't.
Louis always has something to swear at, but Esther is much...
I don't swear. I say something that says my prayers.
Is that going to be taped?
Well, the machine is going, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Oh.
You know,
Well,
Beth Allen, speaking of swearing in prayers, Beth Allen was telling me a nice story the other day about a local gent. This is a true story. He very pious, went to church every Sunday. He also had prayers for the family, including the hired man. And they were kneeling at their kitchen chairs one afternoon when he looked out and he saw the bull got loose in the garden. So he said to the hired man, "Jake, go out and get that goddamn bull out of the garden. Amen."
I'm just started to read a funny little story
That's the best thing I ever heard.
written by a Vermonter called "The Day That No Pigs Died." Have you heard of it?
No.
It's written in the Vermont vernacular, just exactly, and it's written about a Shaker family, the Shaker family. It's very interesting reading it, just the way you'd hear some Vermonters tell the story. And the story opens, the first chapter is about a young boy, 12 years old, whose neighbor's cow is going to have a calf, and he meets her in the pasture, and this cow is moaning with pain, and this 12-year-old boy goes over to her. Her name is Apron. You know why they call her Apron? Because she's all black, but she has white right from her neck down to her belly, just in front of her, or in the side, I don't know what part you call that. And so they call her Apron. And he helps her have that calf. And beside, she moans terribly. So he doesn't know what to do about her. So he takes off his trousers and he ties it to a post. And then he ties it onto the head of the calf that's trying to be born. And he pulls it and he gets the calf out. But then she's still moaning, and guess what? And he puts her hand into her mouth and he pulls out a goiter that she has.
Pull out what?
A goiter. The cow had a goiter.
Ooh.
And the boy, of course, took off a goiter. You know what a goiter is?
A goiter.
Of course, he falls down. He's just 12 years old. And he falls into a lot of prickly thorns, and he gets his backside pretty sore. And
He has no pants on.
they bring him home, and he has to go to bed. And the conversation between he and his father is just wonderful. Then the neighbor whose cow she had two calves, one a male and the other a female. And after the cow gets better, the neighbor brings these two animals over to show the boy what he did. And he wants to do everything for the boy, but it's against the Shaker policy to do anything for anything good you've done.
Yeah.
You've done it, and it's done, and that's all there's to it. But after a while, the neighbor comes and brings the boy a new little piglet. And, the boy is just delighted with it. And he thinks he can put the pig with the cows and the dogs and everything. And the father explains to him that a pig is a wild animal.
Because a pig.
Yeah, a pig is a wild animal, and you can't put him with tame animals because he'll bite. And he explains to him that it's against the nature of a pig to live with these other animals, and he'll have to build a place for him. He said, well, the boy said, it mustn't be very large. He said, yes, it must be. He said, do you know that before this pig is ready for slaughter, it'll weigh up at least 300 pounds. So he said, you'll have to build a big place for it. But he speaks like a Vermonter, you know, in that Vermont vernacular, and it really is wonderful the way this person who wrote this book got that all down. I think that's art. It's a very rural story, but very natural, and I think that's why everybody likes it. It's on the church reading list.
I didn't know there were Shakers in Vermont.
I didn't either.
Where was this?
I've forgotten the name. Well, I guess he just uses fictitious names for the place. But I didn't know. What do Shakers do? They're not like Quakers, are they?
Oh, I'm afraid I don't know. They're related in some way.
Have you ever? Are you acquainted with Artemus Ward?
Yes,
Yeah.
I know some of these things.
He wrote an essay about the Shakers that I read many years ago. Oh, I think it was just wonderful. I like him. His name really wasn't Artemus Ward. It was something else. I've forgotten. That was his nom de plume. But I've forgotten what his name really was.
Do you know why they were called Shakers?
No.
They had a community dance, and the women on one side of the hall and the men on the other, and they advanced in ranks together, and they shook their hands like this, and shook the evil out of their bodies and minds.
Before they
out
danced?
of their fingers. No, as they danced.
Oh, as they
See,
danced.
a whole line of men, there'd be 4 or 5 rows coming forward like this, and as they danced forward, singing, they shook the evil out of their fingers
Such a
like
belief.
this. So they were called Shakers.
Well, you know, in the Orthodox Jewish religion, the men and women never sit together in the synagogue. They sit in different places. In the Orthodox synagogue, and of course, the Reformed is like the Reformed Jewish prayers and places of worship are just like the Protestant. Just exactly, because I've been to both. But the Orthodox are entirely different. They're, the women, see, when a man meets his God and prays to his God, he isn't supposed to be diverted by any other thoughts, just have his thoughts on that. So the woman is taken out of his way, and she stays up on the balcony somewhere, but they never sit together in the synagogue. I was reading a very interesting article in the New York Times. You know, there's a sect in the Jewish religion called Hasidim.
Yeah.
Hasidim, have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have.
And they're becoming very prevalent in the United States. And there's a lot of people who are donating money towards that. And they have buses and they go to New York City and they hand out, you know, like missionaries. But if they ask anybody, are you Jewish, and they say no, they take that thing right away from them, whatever it's script, whatever it is, they take it away from them. And these Hasidim, I really don't know much about it, but it's a very, very ancient sect. Now Louis, for instance, he belongs to a sect called Kohanim. They're supposed to be the priesthood.
Same as the word Cohen.
Yeah.
Same as the word Cohen.
Yeah. See, they're supposed to be the priesthood of the Jewish religion. They're supposed to conduct the service, and they're supposed to conduct the prayers, and everybody is supposed to wash their hands. You know, I don't know, it's all symbolic, I guess. Religion is all symbolic, don't you think? It's things that they do is a symbol of the things. They're supposed to represent something. To me, they might seem senseless, but if I knew the background of it and why it exists, then maybe I would know. know
This
why
is
they
true
do
of
it.
any church service, don't you think, Esther?
Pardon me?
It's true of any church service.
Yeah, everything is symbolical.
I think I've discussed with you before the novels of Chaim Potok. He's a New York
Yeah.
rabbi.
Yeah.
Well, he teaches in one
He
of
wrote
the...
The Chosen.
Yes.
And have you read any?
Yes, I've
I
read
haven't read
two
any.
of Chaim Potok's. And in one of them, he has a lot about the Hasidim.
Oh.
You get a very vivid picture of the Hasidim.
Mhm.
There's one member of the sect there who's very much an anti-Zionist. I was thinking of him when we were talking about Zionism the other day here. And his reasons for being opposed to the whole Zionist movement is very interesting, because he feels it's going to be partly secular and partly Orthodox.
Mhm.
And he can't stand the idea of a Jewish homeland that will be anything but purely Orthodox.
Mhm.
So he's doing everything he can to block
Yes.
the efforts of the Zionists collecting money, for instance, in New York.
Against Israel, against the state of Israel.
And he's interpreting the word Israel in its strictest religious,
What does he
traditional
want?
sense.
Orthodoxy? Is that?
Well, he wants a purely religious state. I guess there's a whole party in Israel now that would prefer to have a religious state
Yeah.
than a
There's
kind of
whole party
mongrel,
that doesn't.
a kind of mongrel state now.
There's a party that doesn't. The younger people want to be Israelis.
Yes.
Israelis and not Jews.
Yes.
See, that's what I read. You know who wrote a lot? Who writes short stories very well? He got the National Book Award. Isaac Bashevis Singer. Do you know
Yes.
him? Oh, I think he writes wonderful. He's a wonderful storyteller. As soon as he starts a story, it sounds as if he was sitting opposite you and relating his story. And you know, he wrote a book. Well, he wrote quite a few books, but one that I like very much is My Father's Court. Have you read that?
No. Does he go back to the old country? Is he Polish in
Yeah,
origin?
he's Polish, and he writes in Yiddish.
Hmm.
But he and an interpreter translate all his stories, and his stories were nearly in every issue of the New Yorker for a while. But now, I don't know what he's doing. I think he's the editor of the Forex, the Jewish newspaper in New York. And I think he's a wonderful storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
In this My Father's Court, you know, his father was a rabbi in Warsaw, Poland.
Yes.
That's where he was born. And, the father was a sort of a legal advisor, a marital advisor, everything, any trouble that any family had, they would go to him to help solve it or to talk their hearts out or whatever it was. And this book, My Father's Court, is all about the different characters that came to his father's court. And it's a gem. You ought to read it. You'd enjoy it. There's one time when he's just a young boy when all this happened. And one time he runs away from home, and the scene that stayed in my memory. It was really a lyrical thing that he wrote about running away from home, being on the streetcar, and I don't just remember where he went. And I don't remember every incident of it, but I could like to read that chapter over again. It was just so beautifully written.
Esther, is this the traditional role of the rabbi in a Jewish community?
Yeah.
He's the marriage counselor and a lot of other things too.
He used to be, of course. I don't know. Well, it's the same way. If people have trouble here, they go to the ministry.
Some of them do.
Yeah.
Others go to shrinks.
Yeah. Well,
not the minister. They call it the priest.
Well, for instance, somebody here was having marital troubles, and one of their friends went to this young minister to ask them about it. What can he do? Well, what can he do about it? If the man doesn't love his wife anymore, he can't make it.
He
can't do anything about it. I think this man is a very honest man, Mr. Travers. He doesn't make any hocus pocus about anything. He just Told you, I told you about the cookies, didn't I?
No.
Did I? Well, one day I cooked, I baked some oatmeal cookies that everybody likes, and one day I was mixing up these oatmeal cookies when the telephone rang, and I answered the telephone, and I always like to have the recipe that I'm using next to me, and this one happens to be on an oatmeal box. So when I went back after the telephone conversation, I continued to mix up the cookies, and I forgot to put sugar in them. When I was baking them, they were terrible. I didn't know what happened to them. So I said to myself, well, I'll have to eat them somehow. And who comes in but Mr. Travers? And I said, can I make you a cup of tea? I said, I just made some cookies that have no sugar in them. Would you like to taste them? So I made him a cup of tea, and I gave him the cookies. And when he got through, I said, how did you like the cookies? He said, well, they'd be better with sugar in them.
Well, the price of sugar, what it is, maybe you'll be cooking.
Well, it wasn't such a high price, and so I couldn't use that as an excuse. I just forgot to put it in.
Yeah.
Because I got diverted from my job by the telephone. I told him that someday I'm going to bake some with sugar and I'll bring it to him to see how much better they taste. I said, for telling me the truth. That thing that you just brought over is some chocolate frosting. See, Mildred and I don't know who else is going to the parsonage for Thanksgiving dinner. And
the Travers will be back by then?
Yeah. And the youngest.
Are they gone?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he had to go to be with his
Oh,
father.
how about him then?
Open heart surgery.
Oh,
He's been gone for 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's gone 2 weeks.
and she's there.
No, she went too. She stayed here a week after he did. She stayed here. She was at that party that they had where you spoke about the Indians.
Great authority on the Indians.
So I have to bake a birthday cake. Not I want to. See, everyone brings something, towards the dinner, because after all, they're not millionaires. So last year, I made a birthday cake for the little girl,
Yes.
the youngest one. I think her name was Gretchen, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And this year I'm going to bake a birthday cake. So I got with sugar as expensive as it is, and you don't like to use any more than you have to. So I got a cake mix and this chocolate frosting, and I'll make it out of that. And it's more expensive than using it from scratch, but that suits me very well. It's easier and it's better. You have enough sugar left for yourself, because that kind of a white cake takes an awful lot of sugar. So I wouldn't have to use sugar. All I have to use is eggs, and mix it up. Make 2-layer cakes, 2 layers, and then put the chocolate frosting on it. And then I have some birthday candles, and I'll take those too.
Have you ever baked a cake for a diabetic patient who couldn't take any sugar? I wonder what they put in cake.
Oh, you know what I really want? I really want that recipe. Teddy would give it to me for that sponge cake that she made over there. Oh, it was just delicious. It had such a wonderful flavor. And she said that she didn't use something I don't believe.
Baking powder.
Oh, baking powder. Well, it was don't you think that's very good cake?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love it. It's.
She hadn't baked it for years and years, and she didn't have the recipe, and she was worried that she couldn't remember the way her family used to bake it. Oh, years ago.
Well, sometimes I don't have a recipe for things that I like to make, but I try to do the best I can from what I do remember. And
Didn't you think that immigrants' dinner was a lot of fun?
Oh, it was wonderful. I enjoyed every minute of it. I didn't eat any of the stuff. I couldn't eat the stuff.
Oh, wasn't there anything there?
No, I'll tell you what happened. I was sitting there, just watching this big line of people who were getting there, and I wasn't going to stand in line. In fact, I didn't go there to have anything to eat anyhow. I just went there because I wanted the sociability. Excuse me. I'm just being
Well, cum laude means with praise.
yeah, with praise, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Latin?
Yes, Latin.
Yeah, I thought.
With praise.
Yeah, yeah. As I have a.
You're one of the people around here who really uses a dictionary, Esther. Remember that story about you?
Oh yeah, that means the dictionary.
Yeah.
Well, I play Scrabble, so
You play with Louis? Does Louis play Scrabble?
he used to. He doesn't anymore.
Oh.
He doesn't want to play anymore. I like to play Scrabble better than anything else. So
I like to play a game that's action in it.
completely
sitting
absorbs me. I like words anyhow, and I play.
Maybe an old guy, but I'm not an old woman.
Raymond,
What do you mean games that have action in them? Hopscotch? I haven't seen you playing.
No.
that has mental activity.
I'm out of that then.
And I don't like cards. They don't do anything for me. I hate to play cards. I feel it's just a waste of time. But Scrabble, I don't say. I read there's an article about Scrabble, and this one's Harper's. You know, some people are. It's like chess. Some people are really geniuses at it. They can get a score of 700. But I'm not. The most I ever got was over 300. I never got any more than that.
Who do you play with, Esther?
Well, in the summertime, I play with Dorothy Swift, Mrs. Gulick's sister, you know,
Oh,
with
yes.
the gray hair.
Yes.
I play with her a lot, and she's taking chemistry and biology, but I'm not. Don't mean to be immodest, but most of the time I beat her.
Oh, really? Good for
Yes,
you, Esther.
She's a graduate of Oberlin, and I'm the graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. But lots of times I beat her. But that isn't anything. I'm interested in words, so and I have a pretty good memory. So, but I just love to play Scrabble. You know, I forget about everything else when I play Scrabble, and that's the purpose of the game. When I play cards, my mind wanders away from it, and I just hate it. It doesn't.
I've played a few games of Scrabble, but I get too tense and wrought up.
No, I don't get it. No.
Makes me exhausted.
On Sunday night, Raymond came down and played with me. But he thinks very slowly. He's slow.
Yeah.
You know, he's 64 years old.
Is he?
Yeah, and I'm nearly 20 years older than he is. But I think faster than he does. But then that's the kind he is. You know, he's a very well-educated man. He's a graduate of Middlebury College.
Yes.
And but he's, I don't know, either he's shy or he's not a good salesman. He doesn't know how to put himself over, but he's a very nice person, and I like him. He's my good friend. His mother and father were our friends too. I remember years and years ago we had Thanksgiving dinner with him, oh, so many years ago. And now he's alone, and he has a terribly lonely life.
He must, yes.
A very lonely life. And a few weeks ago he had a cold. And then I called him up. I call him up once in a while to ask him how he is. And he's a good person.
We see him at the Grange and
Yeah,
after church at the coffee hour.
He's a deacon of the church.
Yes. We like him very much. He has a nice dry wit.
Yeah,
Huh?
very. You know what I think is funny? One time he was telling me he saw a cartoon in some magazine where there was a big party and women were all wearing décolleté. You know what that is?
Yes.
So the caption under this cartoon was, "Women always say they have nothing to wear, and now they're wearing it." Yeah, he has got a very quiet wit. He's but Well, I think once he beat me in this ground. We played quite a lot during the winter. During the winter he has a job up at the Sterling School. He's the night watchman. But I was telling him the other day, I hope he isn't going to take that job this year, because he's getting older and getting out in storms and anyhow, Walter Cronkite said there's going to be an epidemic of the flu this winter, so people better watch out. He said it started in New Zealand, he said. So I don't know whether he'll get the job or not. Of course, he's glad to go up there because it breaks up the monotony of his being alone all the time.
But if he's a night watchman, he has to stay the whole night?
Yeah, the whole night, from 11 until 7 the next morning. And I don't think that's any fun. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it to earn money. Because what does he need it for? I guess he has enough money to take care of himself.
Who is the woman who owns the house that he's living in and remodeling?
That von Rosenberg's countess or whatever, she was a countess. Von Rosenberg that used to live here, that's her daughter.
Oh.
See, she owns that house, on Harvick Street.
Yes.
On
Harvick Street?
Yes.
Yeah. Right opposite Mrs. Hibbert, I think.
Yes.
That's full of beautiful glassware, I understand. This countess, is that her name?
Does she still come up here in the summers?
Oh, she's dead. The old woman is dead.
Oh.
But this woman, I don't know when she comes here. I really don't know. This woman who owns the house that Raymond lives in.
And she's the countess's daughter?
Yeah, she's the countess's daughter, but I don't know whether she calls herself a countess or not. You see, they're Americans, but they married, her mother married somebody.
A German count.
Of no count. Von Rosenberg.
You can't retain a foreign title if you're an American citizen.
No, that's good.
Louis, you had to drop Count. You had to drop your title.
Yeah.
Count von Kesselman.
Count of no account.
Yeah, you're just plain Louis now. You're no Count.
I'll tell you something funny. I think it's funny. I always want Louis to help me in the house, and he doesn't like to do it. So I tell him that he and the Tsar must have had the same valet.
Did you ever hear, Louis, that a man is a hero to everyone but his valet? His valet knows him too well to make a hero of him.
Oh, I don't think anybody ought to have a valet if they're well enough to do things for themselves.
No.
I don't think that people should be so spoiled, even if they do have money, that they can't do some things for themselves.
I was reading a story once about a woman who had grown up as a little princess, and she didn't know how to open a door when she got to be an adult. She'd always had a footman go ahead of her and open the door. She didn't know what to do with the doorknob.
What do you think of that? Wasn't that stupid? Virginia, Longren.
Yeah.
Well, they were wealthy people, I guess, the Pleasants. They're very wealthy. And her mother never believed that she ought to do anything. They had plenty of servants in those days, you can get them. But when she married Siegfried, he's a Swede. And he didn't, his family, his father was a bishop, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was over here when they were married.
Yeah.
We met him over on the point.
Yeah. Well, they were married in Mrs. Pleasant's. Did I ever tell you that I was with Mrs. Pleasant's when Louis had a heart attack in 1944? We were in New York. And Louis got a coronary thrombosis. And he had to be in the hospital for 6 weeks. See, we went down to New York. It was in April. On Wednesday night, I was in the library, and we were going to go to New York for a few days. And I remember I came home from the library, and I washed and ironed all of Louis' white shirts, I don't know, to take him to New York. And I don't know, I was up until about 12 o'clock at night. And the next morning we got up, we had a car, and we went to New York. We got to New York, and we were glad to be away from April is a terrible month.
Yeah.
It's awful, the snow is melting, and it's muddy, and it's terrible. So we went down to New York. We got there on Friday morning. And we got there Thursday night. And when we got off the train at the Grand Central Station, I said to Louis, let's stay at one of these hotels. There's a lot of hotels, and then tomorrow we'll see what we'll do.
Didn't we go by car? Did they drive the car?
Maybe you did, yeah. Well, how did we get to the Grand Central Station if we drove the car? No, we went by train. He didn't have any car. Remember, we walked everywhere in New York. So he said, no, let's call Lily up. That was a friend of ours, Lily and Julius Hurwitz, and let's go and stay with them. I said, oh, Louis, I don't want to bother anybody. Let's stay here. Let's stay here. But he insisted, and we went over to Lily and Julius, and we stayed up nearly all night visiting, which was terrible. We shouldn't have done that. And the next day, we went to see Mr. Miller. Cyrus Miller, did you know him? He was our very good friend. He had an office on 42nd Street. He was a lawyer. Mueller and Bretzfelder was the name of the firm. And we had a visit with him, and the next night he was going to have us for dinner at his house. So then we left Mr. Miller, and we were taking a walk up 7th Avenue, and Louis went in and bought a pair of tweezers, or what was it?
Yeah, tweezers.
Yeah, tweezers. And we were so happy, to be free.
Yeah.
We were just free on our own. Then I called up my brother's house, and my sister-in-law invited us for dinner that night, Friday night. And in the meantime, Will called up and said that his housekeeper isn't well, and could we wait for a few days to have dinner with him? And we didn't care. As long as we were away from here, we didn't care what happened. Well, we went to my brother's, and we had dinner, and then it was time to go to bed. And Louis felt sick, and my sister-in-law and I were up with him all
I woke up at 1 o'clock.
Yeah. And all night long, and we thought he was having indigestion. And we made him lift his arms up and down, and we made him do everything, but it didn't help. And it was during the war, where no doctor would come out. And we just went through the whole night trying to do this, that, and the other thing for Louis. Finally, 7 o'clock came. I said, oh, thank goodness we could call the doctor now. And he said, don't call the doctor, I'm going to walk there. And it was a big avenue block to walk to the doctor. And I said, Louis, let's call the doctor. I'm afraid to let you walk. I didn't know what was the matter with him. Well, we both walked down to the doctor, I don't know, very early in the morning. It was a little after 7. And he'd have to stop every minute. You know what, did you ever see Emil Jennings, that German actor?
Oh, yes.
You could tell what his moods were by the droop of his shoulders. That's all.
Great,
Well, that's how he was. He had to stop every minute and give his bend forward. Well, we got to the doctor's finally, and he came out of his bathrobe. He rang his bell. And I told him, my husband has been terribly sick all night. I said, will you please see if you can see what's the matter with him? And he put his stethoscope to him. He said, oh, your husband has to be rushed to the hospital right away. He's had a very serious heart attack. Well, that came down like a thunderbolt. Well, where could we go? Didn't know any hospital. And besides, it was during the war, the hospitals were understaffed and you couldn't get into a hospital. So he was taken to what's the name of the hospital, Louis? Lincoln Hospital. There was all colored nurses, but white doctors. It was a city hospital, and he was put into a ward with about, I don't know how many other people. And he was terribly sick for a few days. They had him under intensive care. And I really thought he was gonna die then. And oh yes, I must tell you this is important. You see, I used to take care of Fred Pleasant's house, where the Myers now live.
Yes.
And he would come up weekends, and he would call me up. He was living in Massachusetts then, in Cambridge. And he would call me up and tell me he was coming in to fix some dinner for him. So it was a very nice association. I enjoyed it, and I was earning a little money too, which wasn't important, but it was. We had a lot of fun doing it. Fred is very witty. He's very, very witty. Well, anyhow, I wanted to let Fred know that we were in New York. Of course, if he wants to come up here, let him, but I wanted him to know that I'm not there to fix his dinner. So he was living at the Princeton Club then, and I called him up, and he wasn't in. So the man told me to call him at breakfast time. He's always there at breakfast. So the next day by breakfast time, Louis was in the hospital. And I called Fred from the hospital. And I told him, in 15 minutes, Fred was there, at the hospital. I told him where it was. He got a taxi to bring him up. And I remember they were just wheeling Louis into the ward, away I don't know where they took him up in an elevator. I can't remember all that. They took Louis away, and all I had left of Louis was his clothes. And he's gone. And then Fred said to me, "Have you had your breakfast?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh, come on, we'll have some breakfast." He said, "And don't worry about anything." He said, "Louis is here, and he'll be taken care of, and you take care of yourself." He was really so nice. Well, I went home, and I was staying at my brother's. It was terrible there for me. I hated it. Up 3 flights of stairs and the apartment I lived in.
Firefights.
Yeah, well, the stoop was very high. And then it was a terrible day for me. Oh, it was just terrible. Well, Fred called up. I told him where I was staying. My brother had a telephone. He called up. He said, my mother is coming home from Florida. He said, and she engaged a person to come and stay with her, but this person took sick. And I was wondering whether you could go over there and stay with my mother for a week after she comes home from Florida. See, it was in April, the spring. So I said, yes, I'll go. I thought anything would be better than my hanging around at my brother's house and worrying about Louis. I'd have something to do to take my mind off all that.
Yeah.
So they told me how to get to Montclair Street. They lived in Upper Montclair, New Jersey. And I got there, and Virginia and Fred were both there to greet me. And they were very, very nice to me, very. And then Mrs. Pleasant, they went to get Mrs. Pleasant at the train, or maybe Elmer Broad, I can't remember anymore. And of course, I didn't know Mrs. Pleasant then, and I was afraid of her. I really was. I thought, when I first came, I met a woman at the store, and she bought a whole bushel of oranges. Well, that was very foreign to me. All I could buy was 1 orange. And I came back, and I said to Louis, "Oh, Louis, there was a woman in the store who bought a whole bushel of oranges." He said, "That must be Mrs. So Mrs. Pleasance and I, Virginia went back to her family, and Fred went back to the Princeton Club, and Mrs. Pleasance and I were left together. And before the week was over, Mrs. Pleasance and I were very good friends. She really liked me, and I liked her. I liked her the way she was, and she liked me the way I was. And after dinner, we would sit down in the little room adjacent to the dining room, and we would discuss the verities of life. And of course, my verities were entirely different than hers.
The truth is a relative matter.
So I said to her, you know, Mrs. Pleasance, you and I had entirely different backgrounds. I said, I started down there, and you started up there. I said, but there's a way of meeting in between. I said, but I can't think the way you do, because I didn't have the same background. So if you'll forgive me for telling you how I feel about things, I'm going to tell you. And I did. But she and I became such good friends, and she thought it was wonderful how much I knew about literature and how much. But one time I quoted something from Samuel Pepys, you know, the diaries. She said, Esther, how do you know that when you didn't even go to college? I said, no, I didn't even go to high school. I said, I like to read. And then I stayed there, and every time they went to New York, they would take me to see Louis. And see, that was and when I came in by bus, it took an hour to come in by the bus, and then I would have to go down and shuttle over to the east side in the subway. Oh, I had a terrible time. Well, and every time I went to see Louis, when I had to go by bus, Mrs. Pleasance would wait up for me to find out how Louis is and what we intend to do, and she was very much interested. She said, you know, Esther, you're never going to go under. I said, well, I'm going to try not to. You know, then Louis was through at the hospital, and he went to a convalescent home down there. And I came back here in July with Mrs. Pleasance. And I worked for her mornings from 8 to 12. I was supposed to go up there, gave her breakfast and bed, and then she would read, and I was supposed to be going about my work. And then she would read, and she would find a paragraph in some book that she was reading that she thought would interest me. So she called me, and she said, oh, come over here, I want to read this to you, it's so beautiful. She knew that I liked beautiful language. So she would read this to me, and we would begin to discuss it. And the first thing you know, I look up at the clock, it was 11:30, and I said to her, listen, Mrs. Pleasance, am I coming up here to work or to get an education? Well, we had a very good time together. We really did. We had lots of fun. She had a wonderful sense of humor, and she appreciated me for what I was, and I appreciated her for what she was. And she died being my very good friend. And the week that I was supposed to stay there turned into years. I used to go up there and help her a lot, and I used to go through with all kinds of trouble. And you know what else I told her that I think was so good? You know, I said, I thought that people who were rich could be so happy. They could go wherever they liked, they could buy whatever they liked, they could do as they pleased. I said, but now I find that rich people are just poor people with money. Is that going to go in there?
Let's go in there.
Well, never mind.
Oh, that's a gem.
Huh?
That's a gem, Esther.
It is?
Sure. Rich people are just poor people with money.
Yeah, but she always was my friend, always. She was, well, I guess I better not go into that.
Well, you've had an awful lot of good friends here in Greensboro.
She was
People come here for good conversation, to get an education, Esther. They may have gone to college, but still they need an education. So they come here to talk with Louis.
It was through Mrs. Pleasant that I became the librarian. You know, I can get along in this world, you know, see what's what. Like Louis says, see what I can do. Well, they give you a little pamphlet to see what type of questions they would ask you. And I read this pamphlet in the evening, and I said to Louis, oh, I can never answer any of these questions. They're too involved. After I had a good night's sleep, I could answer them.
Do you remember any of the questions?
No, I don't remember them at all. Well, we had to go on a very cold morning. I think it was in Hardwick somewhere, where we had to go to get the examination. See, and they ring a bell when you start, and they ring a bell when you finish, when you're supposed to be finished. And I think I got along pretty well. I got a mark of 80-something. But that was, of course, Robert Wilson and Harriet had just a few years before left college, and they both majored in math. And Harriet got the highest mark. But I said to them when I was going, I said, I hope you get the job. You have a big family to take care of. I don't. I said, I'm not going to get it, but I just want to try. But they and I were the only 3 people who got a mark. Hazel and Nora didn't get any mark at all because they didn't do anything. And Hazel worked in the post office with Nina Hygiene, but she didn't get any mark because she couldn't answer enough of the questions. Well, however, I think it was Nora Marshall that left. She thought that she could be the postmistress, but since she didn't get a mark as being the postmistress, she didn't want to be the librarian anymore, and she left this town altogether. Then Mrs. Pleasance used to eat at Mrs. Gebby's, her midday meal. And Mrs. Gebby was one of the trustees of the hospital. And she said, oh, I don't know, Nora Marshall left and we can't get a librarian. So Mrs. Pleasant says, you know, Esther Kesselman would make the best librarian. She knows more about books than all the college presidents.
Well, they're too busy raising money.
College professors, I said, not president. So I became the librarian then.
How many years were you librarian?
Oh, I was the librarian for a good many years. You see, I was a librarian then, and then when we went to New York, see, I was always here on Tuesday night because I had to light the fire in the library. I was the janitor too. But see, we were supposed to stay in New York just a few days, and I was supposed to be back here Tuesday night, but I couldn't be back. So somebody else took over. I don't remember. I think it was Ina Ladd. See, I had been the librarian then a few years. I don't remember just how many. And then I wasn't the librarian anymore when I came back. Ina Ladd got the job because I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Then Ina Ladd came to me and she said, would I like to take the library in the summer? Because she wanted to deliver telegrams, which gave her much more money than you can earn in the library. So I said, yes, I'd like to do it. You know, the library paid me the least of any job I ever had, but I enjoyed it the most. I really enjoyed it.
You gave a lot of people a lot of help with their reading there, young people. Yeah,
well, I gave older people too. You know, Mrs. Sullivan, my neighbor here, told me, you know, she said, you're just wonderful. She said, how do you know what book I would like to read? And yet you recommend the book, and when I read it, I know that I like it, and I enjoy it. See, I just love literature. I really like it very, very much. And for that reason, I could put my heart into it. I didn't stop to think about how much I was being paid. I was the librarian, and I did it the best way I knew how, and I enjoyed doing it. And then when the fall came, Ina would go back and I'd be out. Then Ina took very sick. And, she died of cancer.
Yes.
After a while, I don't know how many years all this was. And Mr. Colby came to me and he said, would you like to be the librarian? So I said, well, Mr. Colby, I said, Mr. McCrae was the minister here then, and his wife had gotten a degree in library science. So I said to him, Mr. Colby, I said, you would do much better if you would take the minister's wife because she has a degree in library science. I said, I never even went to high school. So he said, well, I don't want the minister's wife. This is just what he said to me. I don't want the minister's wife to be the librarian because this library would be filled with religious books and that isn't what it's supposed to be. So I said, Mr. Colby, if I'm the librarian, I assure you it won't be. So I became the librarian. And I was the librarian for years and years and years and years and years. And I really enjoyed it. And I would have been yet if my health hadn't broken down. I would have been the librarian yet. But my health broke down when I was almost 70 years old. Mm-hmm. I was there on Wednesday night and I came home. I was beginning to get very tired climbing up this hill. Mm-hmm. So, the library is not a sinecure. It's hard work if it's conscientious. Mm-hmm. Not you could just sit there and let people bring you the book, check them out, but that's not being a librarian. Mm-hmm. And I would come home and I would have to sit down for a half hour before I could even get my coat off. Mm-hmm. My heart wasn't good. Something was wrong with it. And one time I got real sick and we called Dr. Densmore and he said, you're in for it. And I was sick for a number of years. We used to live in Gulick's house in the winter. And somehow or other, I was 70 years old when I remember we were living in Gulick's then. And Mildred Willie spent nearly the whole day with me when I was 70 years old. And she brought me a geranium plant from the Women's Union as a birthday present. And I was really sick. I had pernicious anemia. And I don't know how it is that I'm still living, but I am. Dr. Densmore helped me a lot.
Is your breath still short when you climb the hill here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can't climb hills. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, I'm 14 years older now.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing your eyes haven't given out, Esther. You still can read all you like.
This eye has, but I got new glasses, and they help me a lot. So I can read. I can't read for long. Mm-hmm. See, I'm still reading Wally's book, and I've been reading it a long time, but I'm going to finish it. And,
you mean the Uneasy Chair?
Yeah, Uneasy Chair, and I like it very, very much. Did you like it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I think it's such an honest, wonderful book. Oh, I love it. It's an education to read that book because there are so many different facets in it. Literature and the association between all these people who write. And, I find that people are just people no matter who they are. They have all the frailties of human beings.
Well, not any one individual has all the frailties.
No, not any one individual, but I mean people in general. They can be very petty. Mm-hmm. Now he describes Robert Frost. He was since then I don't really want to read much of his poem. It's nice. Yeah, I like that book very, very much. I enjoy it. I look forward to reading it.
One of the many things that interests me about Wally's book is the high count of metaphors in the book.
Of what?
Metaphors, many of them drawn from nature.
Yeah.
And Aristotle says in his Poetics that the ability to think metaphorically is the mark of a born poet. It's something you don't cultivate, it's something you're born with. And I think the book, The Uneasy Chair, proves that Wally is a poet as well as a novelist.
Yes. Oh, and some of the writing is just beautiful. I love to read it. I read the paragraphs over again.
Yes.
It's just like listening to some music, you know? Like listening to some music, it just flows along. And, oh, I really love it.
Esther, I'll have to tell Teddy about your reading of The Uneasy Chair and your attitude toward Frost's poetry. I am in the middle of a big 3-volume Life of Robert Frost by Lawrence Thompson at Princeton. And Teddy thinks that that's too much biography, particularly if it turns you off on the literature man has created. Why should you go into his life in such detail that it alienates you from his creativity?
Yeah, that's right.
And we've argued this back and forth because I've been reading quite a bit of biography lately. A biography of T.S. Eliot and now of Frost and so on. And I'm not sure that I stand on very firm ground here. I have a feeling that anyone as good a poet as Robert Frost is worth getting to know as well as one can, and seeing the connection between his personality and life and his poetry. I'm troubled by the pettiness of Robert Frost, too. It was so unnecessary. His jealousy of anyone he thought was a challenge to him. And he was just too good to be that petty. But it's interesting for a knowledge of how the poetic temperament works, that a man can turn pettiness into art. Or at least the pettiness is a part of his creativity. You can't separate the two out very easily. Now, Teddy thinks that it's wrong to know that much about a person. You don't leave anything of a man's private life. It's better to know the poetry and the plays as we do Shakespeare's and know virtually nothing about the man. Then we're not troubled by any paradoxes of pettiness and greatness.
But if anybody writes a biography, they can't make an angel out of the man when he wasn't. That would be dishonest.
Well, you're talking about his art, and she's talking about the biography.
Yeah, but here's the question. Should you write biography at all about an artist?
Yeah.
Or should you know a man just through his art?
You know, can I show you something for a minute? Just a
Sure.
minute. Somebody gave this to us a long time ago. Speaking, what do you think of Picasso?
Well,
Do you
I
think he's an artist?
Oh, yes. Not everything he did.
Wait a minute. Look at all these things that I say. When I die, somebody will have a hard time throwing all these things away.
Picasso is the Proteus of art. He keeps changing his shape as you look at him.
Look at this. Somebody brought that to us.
From the moment that art ceases to be the food that feeds the best minds, the artist can use his talents to perform all the tricks of the intellectual charlatan. Most people can today no longer expect to receive consolation and exaltation from art. Pablo Picasso, the celebrated exponent of confusion, made a confession in 1951 which is so devastating in its condemnation of modern art that it constitutes a classic description of what freedom is not. Well, what does he mean by that? That modern art is not free?
No, well, he he said read it. He tells you that he was a fake, and as long as people with money wanted to buy his paintings, when they didn't even understand them, but because everybody talked about Picasso, but he confesses that he was a fake. Of course, I don't believe that.
The less they understood them, the more they admired me.
Yeah.
That is his paintings. Through amusing myself with all these absurd farces, I became celebrated, and very rapidly. But when I am alone, I do not have the effrontery to consider myself an artist at all, not in the grand old meaning of the word. Giotto, Titian, Rembrandt, Goya were great painters. I am only a public clown, a mountebank.
Yeah. Do you believe that he ever said that? A great artist like he was. I think Picasso was a great artist. I'm not an art critic, but he was inventive. He was creative. He showed you. He created a new school of painting.
Oh, I think some of his early things, the so-called classic period of Picasso, are as moving as Rembrandt.
Mm-hmm.
There's a painting of his called The Guitar Player, a beautiful study in blue, but the color is only part of it. There's a humanistic intensity to the painting, too. This may be true of some of his stuff. I think his...
but I don't think that...
I am a public clown. I think that would apply to some of his stuff, but it doesn't apply to his best things, certainly.
Well, of course, I don't know whether this person was a very conservative person who brought us this one Sunday afternoon, and I thought I'd keep it. You know, Mary's saying this, she just loves Picasso, and Mary likes, Wyeth. No, his son is doing some portraiture, Jamie Wyeth, and in Harper's he has some of the sketches.
In last week's Time magazine, there was a picture of the youngest Wyeth. He's the third painter. His grandfather was the illustrator, and his father was the painter.
Yeah.
And he paints a lot of animals as well as portraits, the young Wyeth. There was a picture of a pig that he had painted. Mary Stanger
sent us this a few years ago. Oh, Phil, how would you like to have a hot drink? Some cookies that I made?
Well, I suppose I'd be spoiling my lunch.
No, well, no, you wouldn't.
Oh, yes. I love these things. Don't you like his paintings, Louis? He's got such a feeling for people as well as natural scenes. Look at that little boy all wrapped up in himself there with a coonskin cap.
I'll have it ready in a minute. She has such character in that face.
Yes. Madame Meyer. That's a wonderful face.
Mm-hmm. That quizzical smile she has around her mouth. That's a pamphlet from the United Jewish Appeal.
What does this mean? Zalmen, or the Madness of God. A drama about the fears, the hopes, and the secret trials and triumphs of Soviet Jewry.
That's, you know who he is, this man?
Elie Wiesel?
Elie, have you ever read anything by him?
No.
I've never read anything by him, but he's a wonderful writer.
What's his name?
Elie Wiesel. He was in the concentration camp during the German Holocaust.
Oh.
And I don't know how he got out, but he wrote some wonderful books. Wonderful, very moving. I just read the review of them, and I don't know how he got out.
Well, Esther, you were going to talk a little about the early days in Greensboro.
Early days? Well, I wasn't here in the early days, but...
Well, not with the Indians, no.
No. Uh, well, let's see, I came here in 1929, first time. And
Well, I came here in 1928. I thought you were a lot older than I in Greensboro.
oh no, 1929 I came. I remember when you and Peg were, I used to see Peg in the village there near Willie's. No, Louis knew Peg when she was, how old?
I don't know, 16, 17 years old, something like that.
And I knew,
15 maybe.
when I came, Ellen was about 17 or 18 years old, and she was beautiful. She exuded health, vitality. Oh, she was just a beautiful girl, I think. Her features weren't so pretty, but she herself, her whole personality
Wholesome.
was beautiful, wholesome, lovely. You know who was crazy about her? Churchill Eisenhower was crazy about Ellen. That was such a shame that her life was broken up like that, with that disease.
But she's triumphed over it, Esther.
Huh?
She has triumphed over
Yeah,
it.
her face is beautiful now because she has suffered so much. And the look in her eyes, you know, I love Ellen. I think she's a wonderful person. And, you know, I must tell you something interesting. When I wrote her a letter, she wrote to me and then I answered it. And I told her I was having trouble with my eyes. And I said that the doctor said I had a cataract. So you know what she did?
Oh, a magnifying glass for reading.
And after I got this, of course, I sent her a letter of thanks. And after I got this, I went to another doctor, and he said I didn't have a cataract at all, that the condition of my eye is due to arteriosclerosis, that nothing could be done for it. So I wrote her a letter, and I said, Ellen, you know, I don't know how much money you paid for that magnifying glass, but if I wrapped it up, oh, I'll send it back to you because I don't really need it. It doesn't help me at all because my eye hasn't got a cataract, it's something else. She said, don't be so foolish, just keep it. I wanted her to take it back and get her money back for it. Well, I came here, as I said, in 1929, and the only two people I knew was Molly and Norman Duford. I met them in New York. See, before I came here, for 3 years I had charge of a nursery in New York. It was called the Day and Night Shelter. It was for working mothers who would bring their children in for the day, and then some children would be kept over a period of time when their homes were disorganized for some reason, through illness of the mother or through divorce or any other disorganization of the home. We would keep the children, take care of them, and send them to school. The school was just right around the corner. So, but that would close in the summertime, and I would have it like the summertime off.
Yeah.
And through a chain of circumstances, this Molly Duford, you know her, she came and helped me in the library. She was the cook. Our cook took sick suddenly, and I got her to come and cook for us. And she was there for about...
The library, she came to help you in the library, you said.
No, she helped me in the nursery, not in the...
Oh, you said library.
Well, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Did I say library?
Well, yeah, but we knew what you meant.
Yeah. Well, she was so good to the children. Oh, she was wonderful to the children. And she was very good to me, too. We were very good friends. But as the time wore on, it was time for her to come up here. She and Norman would come up here to run this hotel in the summertime. And they asked me to come to Greensboro on my vacation, to stay there at the hotel. I said, I don't want to go. I want to go to the seashore. I love the ocean. So I went to a place called Block Island, if you know where that is. It's off the coast of Rhode Island.
Right.
And it was a terrible place. I just hated it. This Block Island was a geographic phenomenon. It just came up from nowhere. There wasn't a tree on this island. And it was a good place for people who want to get drunk and do deep sea fishing. And I didn't want to do either. So I was there for 2 weeks, and nearly every day I'd get a letter from Norman telling me to come to Greensboro. So finally, after 2 weeks, I came to Greensboro, and I made a circuitous trip from Block Island to Rhode Island to Boston, and I got the train, and it brought me to St. Johnsbury. This was July the 24th, 1929. And you know, in school, I did go to school, they talked about the different states in the United States, and they talked about the beautiful Green Mountain State. And when I saw the railroad station in St. Johnsbury, I didn't agree with them. And then they brought me, there was that little Tunaville trolley that brought you from the St. Johnsbury to the Bend, and when I saw the Bend, oh, that was devastating. Then Sam Ladd picked me up, and he brought me to the hotel. I didn't know a soul here, excepting Molly and Norman, and they were both busy. And, you know, all the elite used to eat there then, the Perrys and the Morys and the Eisenhardts, all of them used to eat there then. And they put me in the back to eat at a table by myself. And I said, oh, I'm not going to stay here. I said, I haven't got any smallpox. I'm not used to eating by myself on my vacation. So I was going to leave here at the end of that week. I paid a week's board. And I always went on my vacation to the Adirondacks to a camp, but there was a lot of young people, and I enjoyed it. It was very beautiful country, too. When I was taking a walk, and I was walking past a community house, and the woman who was staying at the hotel called to me, and she said, Miss Lang, don't you want to come in and meet Louis? Everybody in town knows Louis. So I came in and I met Louis. He was standing here pressing a pair of pants. And she introduced me to Louis, and Louis said, I understand you like to go walking. I said, yes, I do. He said, would you like to take a walk with me? I said, yes, sure, why not?
Where was Louis pressing the pants? Was he in a tent still?
No, he was here.
Oh, in this house?
Right in this house. Can I help you? Do you like the cookies?
Oh, delicious.
So, we used to take walks, and we got to know each other well. And when the summer was all over, I had to go back to my job, and he was going to Florida. You know, he said he'd never stay in Greensboro in the winter, even if they gave him the whole town. He used to hire somebody to take him to Florida, and there he would rent a little place somewhere and do tailoring.
Mm-hmm. Well, Louis, I thought you stayed up here through the winter in a tent.
That was way before
That
that.
was before that.
Oh, I see.
He came here in 1911.
I went to Florida when I became prosperous.
Oh.
Prosperous. Oh, no, speaking of being prosperous, I must tell you this. After I came home from here on my vacation, the first vacation here in 1929, I had a friend of mine who was Rose Forsh, who was by then an assistant principal in the school, in the public school in New York. She was a very bright person. She was brought up at the Hebrew Orphan Asylum, and she was the first person that the Hebrew Orphan Asylum sent to college, and she was a graduate of Hunter College in New York. But she was just naturally very bright, a very bright person. Well, I came back from here, and she invited me out to lunch. And she said, "Did you meet anybody nice in Greensboro?" I said, "I met a man there. He's very interesting." I said, "He owns a little tailor shop, and he's poor." I said, "He stays up there in the summer. He goes to Florida in the winter, and he lives on bananas." So she said, "Well, don't you marry him because you need a varied diet."
You had health fads even that early, huh?
Huh?
You had health fads even that early.
That was,
Is that-
no, he could afford to buy bananas. You know,
I
bananas are
see.
cheap down in Florida. And he could buy, I remember when I went to Florida, we could buy a whole lot of temple oranges for 10 cents. We went to
A
the,
penny a piece.
a penny a piece.
A penny a piece for grapefruit.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
Grapefruit.
was in
imagine
1980.
that.
And then he went to Florida.
Of course, I had to go out. I had to go to the grove
Yeah,
and
to
pick them myself.
Yes.
A penny a piece, a big
But
one.
who wouldn't want to do that? Oh, and the fresh grapefruit, take them right off the trees and take them home and eat them. Oh, it was just wonderful. But I don't
Well, there were three of us. She wasn't with us. That was before we got married. Three of us. We hired an apartment, and it was in the winter, and we made a fire in the fireplace. We said, "I and we ate without an end, you know." These grapefruit.
citrus fruit.
Grapefruit.
Yeah.
The little Hawaiian children that eat nothing but fruit get what they call a fruit pop, a big tummy that sticks
Oh,
out
yeah.
like that.
Who's that?
The little Hawaiian children that eat nothing but
Yeah.
fruit. Well, that's irrelevant.
Well,
Excuse
you must have a varied diet, as Rose said.
So that kept
Well-
you from marrying Louis, huh?
We weren't talking about getting married because we thought it would be very impractical. See, I had a very good job, and Louis wasn't a millionaire. He earned what he could with his 10 fingers. Oh, excuse me.
Acquainted with
Did you ever
Password.
listen to that? It's very interesting, but only that's something, is that on?
Sure.
Oh, it is? Oh, then I wouldn't say it. Turn it off for a second. About,
well, he made about $40,000, this man.
On password?
Yeah.
Oh, easy money.
oh, no wonder people go out and steal and kidnap and all that for money because they get it just as easily. I don't approve of it.
Yeah, this is a form of gambling.
Sure, that's all it is.
Yeah.
It isn't right. It's
Well,
gambling.
We oughtn't to let password interrupt this.
No, all right. Now let's see. What was I saying when I was interrupted? That was nice at Cappington. I do our shopping.
Well, we'd gotten as far as bananas, and somebody advised you not to marry Louis because you needed a more varied
And
diet.
I went back to my job, and I was very, very busy. We opened up another floor, and I was terribly busy. I worked awfully hard, terribly hard, but it was very, very interesting. The parents of these children that we had were much more of a problem than the children. And
Have you
about
heard of the School for Emotionally Disturbed Teachers?
no.
Well, excuse me for interrupting.
Well, I was already here. I was telling you about when I came here and what I did and how I met Louis.
Yeah.
And we started to take walks and we became very good friends. We have about the same background. I mean, I was never a revolutionary like he was, but we were both poor and we had a lot in common.
Sure.
And he likes literature and he likes music and We both had a very nice time together. And then it came time to go home, to go back to, and then he was going to go to Florida. And he wrote to me from Florida, and I wrote back to him. And then as the time wore on, went by, he wrote me that he may not stop in New York when he comes home. So I said, well, you can do what you like about that. But he did stop in New York, and he came to see me at the nursery, and we decided to get married. So on my day off, we went down to City Hall and we got married. And he came back here, and I stayed at the nursery because, see, the nursery was going to close. This was May 1st, and the nursery was going to close by the end of June, and then I could come up here. And that's how it did. We kept writing to each other, and I was telling him what I was going to get for the house, linens, and so on and so forth. Of course, he told me not to get it, but I didn't listen to him. I got him anyhow, and I had him sent up here. And then on July 4th, I came here. And we
Was this the next summer, 1920?
That was 1930. We were
yeah.
married May 1st, 1930, and in 1930 I came here to live. And I remember the only thing that we talked about getting married was I didn't like to live in that hotel. And I thought if I come to Greensboro again, we used to take walks up near where Brownman Potter lives. So
Yes.
Mrs. Gebbe used to be up there then, Nellie Gebbe, and she used to take orders and serve
Yeah.
meals and all that. So I said, this is where I'd like to stay, not in that hotel right there with it. And Mr. Duford, the old Mr.
But we
Duford,
never did.
yeah, so he said, well, you can come to New York, to Greensboro, and then stay with me. That's what he said. So, well, I didn't know how I would like to stay here either. All I did, I saw the front of this place. I never saw the back of it. Well, it was difficult for me to come and live here. In the first place, I didn't know how to cook. There was no stove here. Louis had been using a stove and it became so disreputable that he didn't want me to see it, so he threw it out.
Were you eating just cold meals, Louis?
No, there was then Mrs. Duford loaned us a stove.
Oh.
It was a little Franklin stove, I don't remember. Anyhow, there was a big pot-bellied stove here, right here, in this place. And I used to cook on that, it was a wood stove. And if you took some of that stuff, or if you find a big grease spot there, I would walk from the kitchen and here cooking. And it was all very interesting. It was challenging. I was really pioneering as far as I was concerned.
Yes.
And we had a lot of fun. The people all were so nice when they come in, and they were so friendly, and I somehow or other didn't feel lonely, for New York.
How about the first winter?
Huh?
How about the first
Wait a
winter?
minute. I did the first winter, I didn't stay here.
Oh.
We went to Florida. Then after a while, I met Mrs. Perrin. I want to put her into this. Mrs. Alden Perrin. And she and I became very good friends. And she taught me how to live in Greensboro. She said, if you can get any work to do it, no matter what it is, as long as you can earn an honest dollar. Because no matter what you do, you're always going to be who you are. And see, I never did any housework for anybody. And I thought, coming from New York, where people are snooty, I thought to do housework for anybody was demeaning. But I certainly have changed my mind. What's the difference what kind of work you do? You're always yourself. First, Louis wanted me to help him do tailoring, but I'm not a sewer. I hate sewing. And then he treated me like as if I was the tailor's apprentice, and I didn't like that. So I
Free
said,
slave labor.
Louis, I guess you'll have to get somebody else to help you, and I'll find some other way of earning some money rather than being here. I didn't enjoy it. I hated it. He did teach me how to fell linings and all that, but I hated it. Oh, I hated sewing. So Mrs. Perrin was the one who really gave me an entirely new outlook on life. And then I said to Louis, I said, you know, I've been working very hard all year in the nursery. I said, and I think it would be a very good idea if we could have one meal a day, our big meal at this hotel. And he said that he didn't want to eat at the hotel. So of course I cooked here. And then we made a garden, and I weeded the garden, and I worked terribly hard all summer, and by the fall I was really sick.
Mm.
And then, I don't know.
Then you went to the hospital.
Yeah, then I went to I went back to New York, and I had to go to the hospital and have an operation. And then by the time, then in the winter, he made arrangements for us to go to Florida. What I should have done after having an operation is come here and stay here and be taken care of. Instead of that, I went on this big trip to Sarasota. And when I got to Sarasota, I just hated it. And then we didn't have any money. See, whatever money he earned wasn't enough to pay for all this.
Mm-hmm.
See, he had to hire a shop to work in, and we had to hire an apartment to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And as luck would have it, the first winter I spent in Florida, it rained for 5 months steady, like in a jungle.
Oh.
It was a terrible experience. Well, in the spring we came back here stone broke. Just stone broke. We would have to buy our groceries on credit until Louis began to work. And this is no joke, it was just true. And then I don't know what I did. I can't remember what I did to earn some money. But I did work for different people. And then I worked for Fred after he bought that. He asked me would I take care of his house and do little things around it, and he used to pay me $15 a month. Well, I was glad to get that money because it helped a lot with what we had to do. And then I did it so well that he said that he'd pay me $25 a month. I thought I was a millionaire.
Well, back then you could actually buy some groceries with $25.
What?
Back then,
Sure, you betcha you could. But I never worry about not having any money because that's what I'm used to. My mother never had any either, so I always had a struggle, and that's all right. It's nothing. I'm still living. There's a lot of people who had everything they needed and wanted, and at 84 they're a long time dead, and I'm still going on. And then after I got to know the different people real well, like Mildred Cook, she was my very good friend. And the Milligans, did you know the Milligans?
No.
He used to be the organist at the Riverside Church, and Mr. Milligan. And for 25 years, he was the organist at the Riverside Church. He was a wonderful musician. In fact, I gave the library a book by him about the story of the operas. And then after he got a nervous breakdown after he was working there for 25 years.
He used to drink 2 quarts of milk a day.
Yeah. Well, he got a nervous breakdown, and he couldn't he couldn't be an organist anymore. So he had charge of producing the operas on radio on Saturday afternoons. And that was his job. And Mrs. Milligan was the president of the New York Cancer Society. And she would be the intermission speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to help them. And, oh, they were wonderful people. And they